is he okay with not living with you? Does he realize?
I don't.
Good morning, everyone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning again. Good morning. Let's see, today's agenda. I know we have a couple of additions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have a couple of items, and this is a little bit unusual, but we do have a clarification on the vote that the board made relative to mediation, joining the mediation and the Prime West issue at the last board meeting. And both Brian and Jonathan are here to review that. So if you are willing to add an item where we would consider the resolution to appoint legal representation in that mediation, we could add that to the agenda today and not have to call a special meeting on Friday.
Okay.
And then I know that there are some other housekeeping items. I've made a list of housekeeping items. We can add those as reports after the work session agenda.
Okay.
And then the tour of the Historical Museum is at 10:30. So I'm assuming that we're just gonna go to the door at the Historical Society at 10:30. So we probably have a little extra time between the business today and the time that we need to be down there. But
And I also have a couple items I'd like to add at the end of the meeting, minor things. So with this addition, do we want to start off, as the agenda shows, with the auditor treasurer election process, or?
I would ask to consider this resolution first and then go into the auditor treasurer, because this won't take very long.
Okay.
So what I would like is a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay,
Make that motion.
thank you, Dan.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioners.
Morning, Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add something before Brian and Jonathan. This was standard procedure the last time we went to mediation also. And just to remind the board that Hubbard County will not be paying for these services. It will be billed through Prime West.
You stole my thunder, sure.
Did I? I'm sorry.
No. Brian was probably gonna say
Oh,
the
I
same
could be
thing
an
anyway.
attorney.
It is standard procedure. The resolution from last week obviously was that mediation be pursued by Hubbard County specifically, but the counties as a group. What do we have, 13 counties in that? Prime
Yes,
West, I
yep.
think. And that had already been done by Brian. Brian had already submitted that a number of weeks ago, so that was authorizing what Brian had done. But we do need a resolution to obtain legal counsel, as Shar has already noted. Commissioner, I apologize.
Attorney.
It is not a cost to Hubbard County. And it would be doubling up to get a different type of an attorney. The attorneys that Prime West has retained are good attorneys, and they'll do a great job for all 13 counties. So there's really no reason why, from my perspective, I wouldn't give you the advice to go with this firm.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Well, I'll add one thing. The attorneys here are also the attorneys that are representing Prime West in the lawsuit.
Correct.
So they are well versed on what's happening.
Yes.
All righty. Is there-
a motion to approve?
Yes. Thank you, David.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll just note that I'm on the Prime West Board, as Dan is, and I'm going to be voting. Are you also?
Sure.
Okay.
All righty.
Any great words of wisdom for us?
As far as whether or not you're conflicted from voting? You're not in this case, as I believe the Prime West Board already voted in favor of this as well, so,
We
no.
did.
So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll keep you guys up to date on things as they come across on my side as well, so.
Thank you. Good morning, Kay.
Morning. There's a handout, hopefully, with a plethora of information for you, and I hope you don't mind, I'm gonna wear a mask. Nasty chest cold, a little souvenir I brought back from vacation. Elections, there's so much to tell. And I'm not exactly sure where you want to start, but the first thing I gave you was just an abbreviation and administration calendar for Hubbard County, that this is kind of the main dates that I use to go by. If I gave you the whole calendars, it's around, I think, 160 pages, so that's not gonna be helpful. But you can, kind of look down through this and see, and then I also, if there says county or townships or cities or everybody, that's who's mainly responsible. And these dates are pretty exact, but sometimes, I might be a day ahead or a day behind or a week ahead or a week behind, but hopefully not past a deadline, so. And then the statute that would accompany this notation on my calendar. Do you have any questions with these first 4 pages? One of the things that I added this year to this, well, this is the first year that I've ever done this, but June 24th was the first day to put out non-commercial signs. And so I've already started seeing some of these signs on lawns. I just thought that was really interesting because I hadn't really paid attention that there's an exact date as to which signs can be put on, people's properties. So it goes, started June 24th and it goes 10 days following the election. That's, not really anything that dictates or mandates what I do, but it's still an interesting piece of information that there's actually dates.
I do have one
Yes.
question about, early voting has already started.
Yes, it started
And-
on June 24th.
Okay, how does it work when you got a primary in August?
Well, that's the early voting
Okay, so.
for the
so-
primary.
Okay, so that's
For the
early voting for
primary
the
only.
primary, only, okay, I got it.
Yeah, you can't vote the general yet.
That's what I was wondering.
You can't vote the general until September 23rd?
September
Until
23rd, okay.
September 23rd. So yes, our ballots are out. We had all of our ballots for absentees mailed June, well, actually, some went in the mail June 23rd. We were ready for people to come in and vote on June 24th. No one did, but, just this morning, we had a person drop off 2 ballots and they had to sign because they can only, they dropped off 2, so we had to have them sign for the other ballot. Tell us who he was and whose ballot are you dropping off. So we record all that. Yes.
So, okay, speaking of signatures, the Attorney General changed things during the last election. Have those, like the signature for absentee ballots, if I remember correctly, so has it gone back to pre-COVID?
Yes, yes.
So could you walk us through the process of how things are different now than they were the last election?
Okay, so for 2022, should we go through on an absentee ballot?
Yep.
So somebody applies, well, and if you go to one of your pages, behind ways to vote, you have the life cycle of an absentee ballot. I thought this might interest you. So we would get this back. And first of all, let me back up. Our office mails out these packets, if you will. So there's another outside one where we've addressed it to the voter. They have instructions with a label that says do not place ballot in the drop box. And these are the instructions. This is how it would come back to us. This is just another outside envelope. This is the signature envelope. And we would have a label on this that's barcoded with that voter's ID, name, precinct, school district, and then they have to fill it out with the, either their Minnesota driver's license or the last 4 digits of their social security number. They have to sign it, and then it has to be witnessed. And the witness has to use a street address, they can't use a P.O. box. And the witness has to sign it. If those are done correctly, 2 election judges from our staff will either accept or reject it. If it's done correctly, we'll accept it. 2 judges not from the same party. This is something that's gonna be very complicated to administer, but this is our goal for this year, is that we'll make sure that the 2 judges accepting are not from the same party. And then
So during the election of 2020, did the person have to fill out the top part and it didn't just?
they didn't
need
have
be
to witness in
Yep.
2020.
Yep.
Whereas they now are back to pre-COVID where they do have to have a witness.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is there much difference between the mail-in ballot for those districts that use mail-in voting?
It looks a little different. It's got yellow on it, but it's really the same. They have to have a witness.
Okay,
One of the things that we see all the time is that they're pre-printed with the label, and which is barcoded as well. Everything's barcoded. And so often the husband and wife, they get their ballots mixed up, and pretty soon they've witnessed their own. So then we have to fix it. We have to call them and say, we're gonna send you out new ones. Please, make sure that you witness your wife's and not your own ballot, and send them back into us. That's just something we do. It's so common. But back to this life cycle of a ballot. If the voter applies online through SVRS or the Secretary of State's office, it goes into SVRS, Statewide Voter Registration System. It shows up in our queue because we're looking in SVRS every morning to find out who's signed up to receive an absentee ballot, and we get those out in the mail. We try to get them out every day. If they mailed it in, then we have a paper application. Either way, we have an application. But if they mailed it in, then we have their signature. All of these applications go in a box that we've issued ballots to. And when this ballot comes back, all signed and everything, we're gonna pull that absentee application and compare it. And then it goes into a new box received. But anyway, so we're looking at that application and we're comparing the information on it. So 7 days prior, we're able to start pulling these. These are sealed. And our team will open it up, and we'll make 2 separate piles, and we'll do this with everybody. Now this one's gonna have the ballot in it. This is the secrecy envelope. And we have a big pile for this precinct. So these are done. These now go into a great big manila envelope titled that precinct, and when we're done, we're gonna seal it and we sign across the flap. That's all done. And then we start taking these, we open them up, and we pull the ballot. That's kind of the process. So we never know whose ballot goes with who.
So once it's removed from that white envelope,
Signature envelope.
once it's removed from there, there's no way to ever match that ballot up with that envelope again.
No.
See, and that was the problem with the last election. With all of the mail-in ballots, the last step on the bottom of that ballot, where 2 election judges would sit there and verify that the signature and everything was matched, in many counties across this country, that did not happen.
But it did in Minnesota.
Well, that's good, yeah. But that's the problem why all these rural counties are getting all this pushback from people, because they're taking what happened in different counties across the nation or different states, and they're assuming those things happened in their local rural counties. And they, for the most part, they did not. The local rural counties were doing it correctly. But in Michigan and places like that, where they had people 30 feet back from the tables and people were just taking them out of the envelopes and accepting. Once they were separated, boom, that's the problem. That was the problem with mail-in ballots.
So this is the same procedure we do with mail-in ballots, whether they're mail-in or absentee. This gets pulled out, this gets pulled out, 2 separate piles, and then later, then we take the ballot out of this, whether it's mail-in or absentee.
So the
This
key
is how the
part,
Secretary of State's office has taught us, and this is what we do, this is what all counties in Minnesota do.
so the key part is to make sure the election judges verify that that's correct and a good ballot.
Yep, yep,
If you
so,
take that step out,
so we're approving this, and then we pull, and then we get to this step over here, and we pull the ballot out. If it's a good ballot, it goes in the stack. 2 more election judges are initialing that ballot. They've got eyes on it, and they, yep, there's no marks on it that would identify it in any way. There's, whether it's overvotes or undervotes, that's not our deal. But every once in a while, we'll get one that has a manifesto written on it, which we've gotten. I mean, people have written all kinds of things. They voted Mickey Mouse, that still goes in. You know, and so if there's, where it's obvious that it's not gonna be accepted because they used a big black marker, we would duplicate it. Even if it has incorrect votes, we're gonna do exactly what that ballot was so that it will go through the DS 450. 2 judges are initializing it. And 2 judges have their hands on it if it's duplicated.
That's the point where election judges need to be, right there, and when a separation is made. Instead of forced 30 feet apart like they were, I know one county in Georgia where they were.
So how many election judges does Hubbard County have?
Well, we have our team of 6, and we have 4 temporary election judges hired.
And then how often do you go through the voter rolls and, you know, check for deaths or people that have moved out of the state?
That's
already?
ongoing.
Okay.
So we deal with felon reports. We receive felon reports, is it once a month from the Secretary of State? We might receive reports from the Recorder's Office. We might see something in a local obit. We might hear of something. We also have a form that goes out to, in our supply boxes to each precinct. It's a little notification of deceased voter. We get those back. In 2020, we caught people that had voted a dead spouse's ballot. We prosecuted to the extent that we were able. We also pulled ballots that we found out were deceased. I remember one, I approved the ballot, and I remember it because the handwriting was atrocious. You know, you can tell when someone's 90 years old and trying to sign, and about 2 weeks later, we went in and pulled it because the poor gentleman was deceased, and that was really sad, but that's what we had to do. And it was before the election, we caught it, so we had to pull it.
I have a question.
Yes.
The statute says that your judges need to be balanced 50-50 on your parties. And what's your process in determining whether someone's Republican or whether someone's a Democrat?
In our election staff.
Okay.
Yeah, we have what's called as a notification of election judge interest, or an election judge interest form. And I just had everybody sign one of those because it has your party affiliation on it. I treat that as private data. Sandy and I are going to know who they are. And we'll just say, you know, I can work with you, but I can't work with you. And you two can work together, but, you know, and that's why I said it's gonna be complicated trying to manage all of this, but we're just gonna say you can work with, you know, this person, and if you see this person's initials, don't accept here, you know, you can't work with this person.
what's,
I think that's the best I can do with that, but we have relatively power.
can you walk us through the whole timeline of selecting election judges and what the process is to select them?
Our townships precincts are, the clerks are responsible for electing their own election judges, and they have until this Friday, July 15th, to notify me. I have several trainings set up. There's one missing on here. I have to train for our poll books. I don't have that day scheduled yet, but you can see that there's several dates. July 27, 28, and August 2nd are going to be for in-person this year, election judge training. Around May 15th, I received emails from the state on who would receive priority as an election judge because of their party affiliation. They signed up specifically to serve, and those people are supposed to be able to have first come, first serve. So I send those out to all the clerks. And then the clerks assemble their teams and they notify me. And they've all been trained on the requirement for party balance, which again, those election judges serving tell the clerk and the head judges, they know, but otherwise it's private data.
And what about here in the county for election judges in the county?
In Hubbard that
Yes.
serve here in the courthouse?
Yep.
Sandy and I know. We have, for our team, we know who they are and who they can work with or who they should not work with.
But how did you decide who to hire to do that? Because that doesn't come from the township levels. You interview people,
Oh,
right?
we interviewed and hired through HR. So I did take into consideration who was who, but in the end, it worked out. So that we were able to just hire who fit our needs the best.
And you maintain that balance, that 50-50 balance in that case also?
Yeah, and we've looked at the statute and we actually have more of a 30-30, 40 balance, 30% unaffiliated. I don't remember which one is 30 or 40 is. I think we have 3 Democrats or 3 Republicans and 4 Democrats or 4 Republicans. I don't recall which one's which, but that was the best we could do.
Yeah, we've been fielding a lot of questions about election judges is the reason for the question.
We're very cognizant about the party balance. That is a
Yes,
hot
and-
topic this year.
And in addition, I don't think everybody out there quite understands that, there's an inordinate amount of people that want to be election judges now. Not everybody gets to serve. I mean,
That is
obviously.
correct.
So there has to be some sort of selection process to determine who serves and who doesn't.
And we hired according to what our needs are, and what they could commit to. If they can't commit to our hours and our needs, then just like any other employee, we can't hire them.
And
We
I
have
would-
different responsibilities. We have 3 coming on tomorrow that are gonna start testing equipment. Every single piece of equipment is gonna be tested and certified before it goes to the election, and then we're gonna do it all over again before it goes to the primary election. We're gonna do it again in October before it goes out to the general election. Every piece of equipment is certified.
I believe also if I would have signed up to be an election judge for Hubbard County and I wasn't chosen because you had ample, I could go to any other county or township in Minnesota and serve if they needed an election judge.
You can, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we've also had some work here for us, and they're also working at a precinct on election day.
Yes, but you would have to have the training,
Yes, that's right.
and you would have to reach out to the appropriate people at the appropriate time, because there's deadlines.
Yep, that's right.
That is correct. We started months ago working on our teams. So, and like I said, this year, all our training is gonna be in person. The past 2 years, we had it online. And in 2024, I imagine I'll go back to online. But I felt with so many new rules, and it'd been a couple years, I just really wanted everybody to come back to being in person. I wanted everybody back together so everybody hears the same message. I mean, the online trainings, everybody hears those as well. And you have to test out of those to be able to move to the next subject. So they're good trainings, but I just really felt it was important to have everybody here and in person this year. So though, which is a lot more work, but it's okay.
So I just want to comment too that, you know, after going through and now that things are back to the way they were pre-COVID with the absentee ballot and stuff, as long as all the safeguards and processes are followed on that ballot, the citizens of the county should be rest assured that it's a very robust and foolproof system of voting.
I feel very confident about that because we know who you are. If you're in a mail ballot precinct, we're gonna mail you a ballot because you are registered to vote. You either registered to vote by sending in an application, or you went online, or you registered to vote when you updated your driver's license. If you're not registered to vote, we're not gonna send you an application because we don't know who you are. If you're an absentee ballot, you applied to receive that, so we know who you are. We also have a roster, whether it's on electronic e-poll book or whether it's in a paper binder, listing out who you are. Then when you go to vote in person, you either sign the electronic roster or you sign the paper book. So that's the other thing. There's always one ballot with one signature, and that's how we tie everything out. We don't have two signatures for one ballot or two ballots for one signature. It's 1-to-1.
And they wouldn't be, the rosters wouldn't have your name if you've already applied for an absentee ballot?
We mark those.
Oh, okay.
So, well, if it's already in the system that you voted by absentee, when we print out those absentee, or those rosters out of SVRS, Statewide Voter Registration System, it's gonna have an AB on it, on the voter signature line. That indicates to the election judge that that person already voted, and you better not see them in person at the precinct. Right on election day, that morning where or the day before where they come to pick up the rosters, we are scrambling to make sure they're updated with the most recent voters that we've received applications for. So, and then we would manually write AB on those before they go to the clerk or whoever's the head judge that's picking up those rosters. And then the morning of the election, we're calling and we're emailing out the latest so that they're very up to date.
Okay. I was an election judge for years, but it's been years since I was one.
The average voter has no idea what goes into an election. It's impressive.
And I was from Schoolcraft Township. I was proud of our turnout because we had, at the time, it was 103 residents. About 80 people were registered voters, and we had almost 100% participation. You know, there'd be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people each time that didn't vote, and we'd know who they were. You know, so I was amazed at the number of people that would come in with their driver's license in hand, ready to show me their ID. And I would tell them, you know, you don't have to do that. And it's like,
That's
well,
right.
how do you know who I am? And I say, well, I know who you are, you know, but it's an honor system in a sense when you're voting in person. But like I said, I enjoyed it. It was a day where, you know, 103 people, 80-some voters in an 8-hour day, you know, at the time.
And it's a long day.
Yeah. We did a lot of reading the newspaper and playing cards, and then all of a sudden, you'd hear the vehicle pull up, and it's like, okay, we gotta be professional now. Be all ready for the voters.
Yep.
So I enjoyed it, but.
So one of the things that I gave you was the summary of election statistics going back to 2014. You can see that in 2020, it was 86% turnout. You can also see that we had the most registered in history for Hubbard County, 14,147. Right now, I think we're in the 15,000s for people registered. In a whole population of just over 20,000, we have 15,000 registered voters. That's amazing to me.
It's really good.
Yeah. You know, and you can look at 2014 and see the growth, 12,444, 68% turnout. Let's see, now that's a midterm. And 2020 was presidential. If you look at 2016, it was 83% for a presidential election. And then the next page, I have comparison of voter turnout, mail-in versus in-person. So your mail-in precincts are on the top, and your in-person are before. And this shows that mail ballot precincts have a 90% turnout, as opposed to the 86% overall in-person. And I'm looking at 2020. And it's grown a little bit each year.
I was asked a question the other night.
Excuse me.
As of today now, how many mail-in townships do we have? Mail-in ballot townships? 10. That's a pretty good guess. I said 10 to 12.
Yeah, yep. So almost all precincts that were mail-in in 2020, for 2020, they have gone back to in-person. So right now, it's Akeley Township. Oh, wait a minute, yeah, Akeley, Clay, oh, where's my list? Yeah, Akeley, Clay, Hendrickson, Lake Alice, Schoolcraft, Steamboat River, Thorpe, White Oak, LaPorte.
Crow Wing went back to.
Crow Wing went back, Badura, Arago, Helga, Lake Emma, Mantrap, Nevis, Township, Nevis City.
Did
all gone
LaPorte
back.
go back also?
LaPorte is still mail ballot.
Yeah, we had people at the annual meeting. We voted on the annual meeting to go back to in-person.
Yeah, Schoolcraft's problem, reason why they went to mail-in ballots was we couldn't find more people to volunteer to be election judges.
I think that was Crow Wing's.
However, you can take from the pool if you so desire to go back into in-person.
Yeah.
It's just a little more work for the clerk. So I asked a question of Kay that it doesn't have anything to do with this, but the board would be handy to know. I asked her what our rating is for Hubbard County for, when we look at the financial
Credit.
advisor for credit.
And it's AA3.
Do you want to explain the difference?
I can try.
Okay.
So Moody's is the rating company that does Hubbard County ratings, and we're not quite, we're healthy, we're very healthy, but we're not where I'd like to see us at an AA2. And I believe what's holding us back is the nursing home because of the huge liability and the struggles that they've had. Otherwise, we would be an AA2, but we are an AA3, still very healthy. And I know I had sent you the whole 6-page letter. I didn't print it out.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions you have with that?
Just so this has to do with then, when we go to borrow money, the interest rate we would get, correct?
Right. It's ironic, the better credit rating you have, the lower the interest rate.
So there's a chart that, that shows you where AA3 is on Moody's scale.
Thank you.
So it's above average. It's a good position. It's really for, it'd be hard for us to move above probably an AA2, just because of the size of our budget. So we're really we're in good position.
Is there any other?
So
oh,
the
wait.
important thing is for you to know that we have high confidence in Kay and her staff and the process here, and that if you have questions, if you get questions from people in the public, make sure that you connect them directly with myself or with Kay, more so with her. I served as a city clerk for 5 years, so I was the clerk for a city for 5 years and 3 election cycles, and that's one of my favorite parts of my job now is I'm not. So, but I do know the system. I was trained, I ran the trainings, I did those things, everything that Kay talked about from the city standpoint, and we have done and we will do a good job with elections for Hubbard County. So if people have questions, please make sure that you connect them to the right people. We'd rather answer to them than leave them hanging out there.
So, okay, I do have a question. So when you send this to the state, it's done paperless, can you track to know that the state, there hasn't been fraud somehow at the state level for what Hubbard County voting? Can you track all that?
We can compare our statistics with the state.
So you can go in after the election to, if, say I'm a skeptical voter and I come in, and you can then go on to the site and prove that what you sent down was what was recorded.
We can, yes.
Okay, thank
So if you vote in person, your ballot is gonna be put into a DS-200. Every single precinct uses the same equipment that was tested prior to the election and certified. That DS-200 isn't on the internet. It has a thumb drive in it that is sealed. You can't take it out until after the election. It's locked. So election night, everybody brings back their supplies. They bring back that thumb drive to us, and we have a computer that's ERM, Election Results Management. It's not on the internet. It's the one that's freestanding in our office on the big counter. It's not connected to anything. We put that thumb drive into that software, and it formats it into the results needed. We walk the file back over to, well, it would be Marie's computer, and she has a special drive that goes to the Secretary of State directly. That gets uploaded directly to the Secretary of State. And that's the process for getting those results into the state. We don't report to anyone else, we report only to the Secretary of State. So anybody that wants to get their results they can go to the website, and we're uploading as those results come in. We don't leave until we're 100% done. I should say we've never left until we're 100% done.
And just to clarify, those machines are tested and verified prior to election night.
Yep,
People
yep.
know
So
that.
for the primary election, we're gonna start testing those machines tomorrow with the 3 new election judges that we've hired. We've hired 4, but 3 are going to help test. And Sandy does those trainings.
And between the time the tests are completed and election night, no software updates or anything are done on
No.
that machine.
No. So now I should back up. That's the Omni ballots and the DS-200 and the DS-450. The election poll books that we use in 6 or 7 of the largest precincts, I've already certified those to the state. But the election for the primary will be built Thursday, Friday, Saturday before the primary election, and then we'll do it again before the general.
And do those machines have an online connection during the election?
No,
Okay, they do not,
they're not.
okay.
No, the DS-200s and the Omni ballots, they have no Wi-Fi access. The e-poll books have a Bluetooth because they'll talk to each other. You know, if you go in and vote at Todd or Park Rapids City, they have several electronic poll books for each precinct, so that the lines will keep moving smoothly. And if you sign in, you register over here, it's gonna talk, and you can't go in over here and sign in again. And that's why they'll talk to each other, so that you can only go in and sign in once.
So outside of an election year, I mean, just a normal everyday, if the company decides they want to update the firmware in the machine, how do they do it?
Well, they have to notify us. And then we go in and maintain, or with our DS-200s, and I think well, I'm not sure on the Omni ballots. The DS-200s, a maintenance person from ES&S will come and service us. It used to be Steve Simonson, but he retired, so I don't know who it is anymore. So. There's so much that goes into an election, and, you know, like I said, the everyday voter just has no idea that everything is certified and tested. And one of the things that I've come to learn is often I've dealt with voters that come in or they call and they're very upset, they're even threatening. And I've learned that they're that way because they think that maybe their rights have been impeded somehow, or that they're not being treated fairly. And what it boils down to is education. They simply don't know the process, or they don't understand the whole voting system. And when I've, you know, explained to them and answer their questions, they settle down and vote the way they're supposed to. Maybe they didn't feel it was right that they were a mail ballot precinct and they wanted to vote in person, and they can come in and do that. They can come to the courthouse and vote in person. And once everything is explained to them, then they're much better. But every election I've dealt with some of these people, it really boils down to education. So I appreciate that you've wanted me here today to ask questions. And any other questions that you might have, please call. Please call, stop in. If you're on the ballot for the general election, don't stop in, call. Or I can come out and talk with you.
Yeah, can't go into your office anymore, is that right?
Not when you're on the election. You know, you're not on the primary ballot, you can come in our office. But when you're on the general ballot,
Then,
yeah, be very careful.
okay.
Because our office, you know, I mean, we have that back room where we keep ballots, and that's locked at all times. It automatically locks whenever you shut the door, but, you know, right now we're using all of our space. But you're not on the ballot in the primary, so you're fine. But I do welcome your questions.
Alrighty. There's nothing else?
Okay.
Thank you.
If you want any other information, I gave you a lot, but if you want more, I probably can dig up more.
Okay, you may want to stay for the next conversation as well,
Okay.
relative to developing questions for interviewing of the financial planning consultants. So this thought kind of came up when we were at the AMC district meeting a couple weeks ago, when they were talking about election procedures, and they shared a video that Anoka County had put out, an educational video on doing exactly what Kay did, but actually walking it through their process and showing you where they were doing it, and that they were counting their ballots out in the public, the front hallway space of the courthouse in Anoka County. That's where they do it. So Anoka County does a relatively good job with their video, and they also do a lot of short educational videos too. So sometimes we steal from them because they've already done that. But in this case, it was better to hear from Kay directly. Are we ready to take a look at the questions relative to RFP for financial planning? I basically, where did you go? I accidentally clicked on it too many times. So the elements of the RFP are financial planning, investment planning, capital planning and debt management, economic development planning, and then a couple of specific things that I threw in here: experience with process for estimating financial impact of significant tax capacity changes. Right, that's kind of the most pressing thing that we're concerned with. And then another one that came up is the role in building public consent and attendance at public meetings. How they handle that process, and examples of how they've done that. So, in my mind, the questions would look a lot like, well, first I'll back up and say that Northland Securities called and opted out. So we'll only be interviewing 4 of the 5 companies. I believe I have confirmed that Ellers is going to be in person, Baker Tilly is going to be in person. PFM is going to have some people here and some people online, and I have not heard a confirmation from DDA yet, but, and I'll try to, it's going to be technologically a challenge because Commissioner Christensen's also going to be virtual for that meeting. So I will have one long Zoom meeting open for the whole meeting, and I will manage who's there from these companies by using the waiting room. So I'll allow them in for their 30-minute block, and then when they sign out, and I'll give them this direction this week when I update the schedule for them. And I won't let the next group in until we're ready to start the next group. So that's the best I can do with that tool. I think I can manage that much technology. We'll see. I just couldn't manage this technology, but we got it back quickly. So I'd be interested in if there are any specific questions that any of you had come up with. They're not in question format yet. They're really just ideas kind of poking at the major elements from the RFP process. And again, my thought was maybe to have a list of 5 questions so that each one of you would ask a question like we would in an interview process. And then you would obviously be able to ask follow-up questions if something came out of that conversation, or if there were any additional questions after that. I'm not anywhere near as concerned about the process in this as I would be if we were hiring for a position, because we don't have the same obligations for documenting who we're choosing for this process. But does anybody have any specific questions, or do you just want me to develop the questions along the lines of the RFP?
What day are we doing this again? Tuesday?
Tuesday. And we have the first one scheduled at 11, 11:30, 12, and 12:30. So we will be hard stop done shortly after we have a vote after 1 o'clock.
You actually covered what I had, my thought, and I thought that was interesting. The role in building public consent and attendance at public meetings. I hadn't thought of that. That's a good one to
That's a good
put in
one.
there.
So if I were to complete this first one, I would probably say the question would be, the process that you use for implementing long-range financial planning and provide So that's probably what these questions would look like, is they would just say, please describe your process and give us a relevant example of a similarly sized. We'll let them determine what relevant is, but in my mind, it'd be somebody with a similar sized staff or budget.
With the investment planning, the next one, for government like this, what level of investment are they able to do? Is it just CDs, or can you go into bonds or anything like that?
We have a lot more options available to us than what we're currently availing ourselves of. Now, that's not to say that we can take and throw public money into the stock market,
Yeah.
but there are ways that we can invest significantly. We can do better than what we have been doing.
Maybe in that one, have them describe their, the kind of investments that they do and maybe their track record for it.
And I might even go further, because these folks have access to our financial data, right? They can read it. They go back and they read our financial reports. They know what our bond rating is. They know what our debt history is. They all know what our schedule is. I would specifically ask them if they have a strategy that they think would be useful for Hubbard County related to investment planning. That would be much more specific, and I should just write that down.
Just a notation on that, Tom. So Kay knows much more about this than I do, but, we have some money invested in Magic, but most of the money is invested locally because, before you guys were on the board, the previous board voted to keep as much money locally invested as we could, as long as, you know, the investment strategy was the same or better.
Right.
And through the downturn, the return has been much better locally than it has at Magic.
And there's some hidden value there too. keeping the
Yes,
money
there
local.
is, yep.
And that is completely the strategy relative to investment planning is completely the responsibility of the board. But you don't know what you don't know until you do this. The Magic Fund was kind of created as a way for counties, for municipalities to be able to invest without having to worry about coloring outside the lines. Because that Magic Fund is managed by a group of people who know that those investments are gonna follow the rules. So we can't get in trouble by investing anything in the Magic Fund, right? And then otherwise locally, we have the ability to do that too, but there are other strategies that are available to us. So what would you recommend for a strategy for Hubbard County to improve our investment planning and rate of return would be, I think, if they've done their homework, it will be obvious. They all should have, because this is easy, these are easy pickings by going back and looking at our recent audits, which are on the county website, right?
That same type of question poses well for the economic development piece too, because there's tools available that we don't use.
Yep. Just going back to the investment with Magic, some of the larger counties invest the bulk of their investment dollars in Magic. We just are using a different strategy, so.
Historically, you know, the board has wanted to be all locally invested. And Magic is the one place where we've gone outside of local, investing locally. Excuse me. Excuse me. As I recall, that was quite a challenge for even to get approved to go to Magic. And boards have changed, times change, and opportunities change, so I feel that you are maybe in a new place where you can start looking for other opportunities.
I do believe, you know, investing locally is an important piece of the puzzle for a variety of different reasons that more than likely would continue. It's just a matter of how much.
And I agree, and I would hope that you would stay invested locally, but there's room for opportunity.
Yeah, could balance it.
It's not unlike the conversation about the county health benefit system, is if we looked at what the options are, we looked at the total dollars that are available, and then you make a priority on how much you wanna put here and here and here relative to the rates of return. You know, what's the potential positive impact? I don't know. I know it's more than 100,000. I know it's probably less than $1 million, but that's still a big range relative to the fund balance that we carry and the additional revenue we could generate by having a different investment strategy.
And it's even more important now because if we do more capital planning, there's gonna be more funds that need to be invested
And that would,
for future use.
those funds would probably require a different strategy than our operational funds, and that would make sense.
And the county as a whole is in a healthier position than it was 5 to 7 years ago.
You can see where every one of these topics, it's kinda hard to isolate one from the other. They're all intertwined. And decisions you make in one area will affect the other areas, so you really need a broad, overreaching plan that makes sense, all those pieces working together.
Just a note of information, Prime West, and any money that they have to invest, they use strictly the Magic Fund, just because all 13 counties involved.
So I think that capital planning, debt management, as much as strategy for investment planning and strategy for economic development, I think they're structured the same way. I think that long-range financial planning and capital planning debt management will be structured the same way, those two questions. I think writing this one, describe the process for estimating financial impact of recent significant tax capacity changes in Hubbard County and not being specific. Means they have to do a little bit of homework. They need to know that our residential properties went up by 36% this year. And you got that email from Jamie this past week that showed the GIS and the labels, and I don't know if you were able to get in there and take a look at that, but it's really interesting. The highest increases when you look at residential properties are in the Hubbard County, Cass County, Crow Wing County, Aiken County, and Itasca County. And then Lake and Cook. We're all in that highest bracket. So what do you see when you see that?
Remote.
You see everybody moving to the cabin, right? That's what you see. So that's what happened, and it didn't happen to the same extent everywhere else, but everybody else saw increases. So, this would require them to understand or identify not only the market changes in residential, but also identify the Enbridge opportunity. And again, those who know, and they would bring that up. I actually had one of the respondents asked if they would be provided the questions beforehand. Now, if they're paying attention, they're being provided the questions right now. But no, I don't plan on giving the questions out to everybody else because these should be very basic questions. But if they're watching now, then they know what the questions will be. And then this last one, I think that makes 6, and I think that's perfectly fine. We could just work it out. Who would ask those? We could even have Kay ask one.
Would it be easier when I'm on Zoom not to ask a question? Because I'm okay with that.
The sound system works really well. It's very interactive. That's completely up to you. I don't see that it would be a problem.
Okay.
As long as, we're on with the microphone and off with the microphone at the right times, then it shouldn't be an issue.
You'll probably be the loudest one there.
Probably.
We might hear it more clearly, if she's got a good microphone on her laptop. Or iPad or whatever it is you'd be connected
I'm
with.
using my county computer.
Okay.
So.
So do these work the way that they are? I'll finish drafting the other two and we'll go with that.
I think they hit everything.
I think you're really good, yeah.
I hope this is on autosave so I don't have to. Yep, it's autosaving. I think that would be all that I would have, except for a couple of housekeeping notes relative to upcoming meetings. A little bit of time that I'm going to be out of the office the rest of the month, and then after the meeting, I'm going to want to catch up with Commissioner Christensen and Kruger to talk about setting up some dates to think about negotiations.
Okay.
I'm getting got another email request this morning saying, what's your calendar look like? So I would note that the Hubbard County Township Association is Monday the 18th at 7 o'clock at the Henrietta Town Hall. I think everybody's aware of that schedule. I am going to be out of the office Wednesday the 20th, attending an MCIT data practices review. I'm taking a personal day on the 22nd, and then on the 28th and 29th, I'm going to be in Duluth for County Administrator MACA training session in Duluth. But those would be the only updates that I would provide. That
Okay.
is fine.
And then myself, I had, you knocked a couple things off my list there. I'll start at the beginning here. I got an email from, I'm gonna butcher his last name, Joe
Pavelko.
There you go. He's with the DNR. He sent me a list of areas in all of Minnesota they're looking to spend Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage funding on. It's quite a big file. It would say there's a section for Hubbard County. You would click on that, and you would have to dig through to find the little like for Lester Creek, and they're doing some work there and those kind of projects. It seemed like most of the work was being done in my district and Dan and Tom's, but I thought I would send that to Jeff, and then he could send that to you folks. I also had, with the Dancing Sky Area Agency on Aging, which deals with the Older American Act that was passed in the 1960s. They sent me a draft resolution that they would like us to support, pass a resolution. They're trying to get, the funding for these programs have been stagnant for years. They're asking for us to pass a resolution and send a letter of support to the legislatures, or our legislators, to try to get more funding for 2023. I don't know if that's even gonna be possible because the legislature isn't doing anything now, but I thought I would there again forward that to Jeff. Then Tim Terrell, Executive Director at the Mississippi Headwaters Board, I spoke a little bit last time about at the committee reports. We're trying to get the DNR to go through with the sheep ranch sale. The Mississippi Headwaters Board this month, we have a letter all drawn up to support, to show that there's 8 counties. This is gonna be sent to Sarah Storstrom, the DNR Commissioner. And it's something here in Hubbard County, as a board, we've already okayed it, there's funding available. This is a project that's ready to go, and the DNR's kind of, all of a sudden has changed their mind. They're gonna try to make a one big sale with the conservation fund. But we don't wanna have that delayed, so that's something there again that I'm gonna, ask to maybe, for that and the senior meal, those 2 things I'd like to have put on the agenda for next month, or for next meeting. And there again, the timelines with the legislature not really being in session right now, I don't think there's a timeline that needs to be met. And also, Senator Rude has sent a letter to the DNR supporting us going through with the sheep ranch thing. And then one last email that I'm gonna forward to Jeff and have him forward to you folks. Judy Weiss, here from Park Rapids, is on the Dancing Sky Area Agency. They wanted to send this out to see if there was any other agencies or groups that may be able to use some of this funding. And of course, me being on those boards, I already know about what we're trying to fund, but I didn't know if there's boards that you guys might be on that may be able to use some of this funding too. So I was gonna ask Jeff to send those out, send that email out to you folks too. So basically, it's those 2 emails to forward to you guys just for your reviews. And then 2 things I'd like to have put on the agenda. I don't know if they could be in the consent agenda, and if you guys want to pull them and talk about them or whatever, we could do that. And that's what I had.
I have one thing, I'm gonna be out of town, for the HRA meeting on the 18th. If anybody would like to sit in on that in my place.
I'd love to, but I'll also be gone during that time.
Okay. The educational, if you're interested, just let me know, and when I get the agenda and the paperwork, I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
So it's Monday night at 4, or I think it's 4.
That's here in Park Rapids?
Yeah, and it's at the Economic Development, at the hangar. So a commissioner sits on that board. It's a non-voting,
Okay.
but it's great. It would be great for you to just learn
Yeah.
more about, because you're on the HRDC, that'd be a really good fit if you
Yeah.
want.
I'm definitely thinking, because I saw that the Hubbard County Township Association was gonna be in Henrietta.
Yeah, oh yeah,
So-
that would be good.
So if I came down here and then
Yeah.
could swing over there. So I'm gonna say yes. I got here with a question mark.
Okay, okay.
I mean, that's like 6 days away. How can I plan
I
that
know.
far ahead?
I know, but that would be great to have you there.
Thank you. And is there anything else?
And just a note, I let Jim know at the Prime West meeting about our vote for the Prime Health. And Matt wasn't there that day, so I didn't talk to him, but I'm actually gonna suggest to him that I don't attend that Prime Health meetings the rest of the year. Once you give notice that you're gonna go out for bid, you're a non-voting member. And now since we've decided to leave, so I would just not attend the last two meetings.
Makes sense.
And notice was provided last
Yeah.
week.
And Jim was very respectful. He just said you have to do what's best for your county, so.
Oh, good. So do we adjourn, or are we recessing, or?
We would adjourn,
Okay.
with just the tour of the museum at 10:30.
Okay. So if there's nothing else,
I'll move to adjourn.
thank you, Shar.
I'll second.
Tom, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.